Are you ready to take charge of your life? Today, we're going to tackle how to hold yourself accountable, how to stop holding yourself back, and stick to your own personal boundaries. I often get this question like, why does this happen? Why can I hold myself accountable when I know that I truly want and have this desire to reach this goal, but something just holds me back? And usually it's ourselves, right? We hold ourselves back from achieving our goals. More importantly, we're going to talk about like how we break this cycle, and I'm going to give you some tangible tips with some real subscriber scenarios on how you can start holding yourself accountable and actually meet those goals, reach those habits, do the things that you truly want to do. But I first want to address the real reason why we can't hold ourselves accountable. And usually it's the one thing that most people just like neglect to even focus on or to even realize. And that is that the biggest culprit for our lack of personal growth and seeing results is self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is a complex behavior where individuals undermine their own success and goals, often subconsciously. It's so important that we understand why we self-sabotage and we recognize the ways in which we do it. This can help us create strategies to stop that counterproductive behavior. Why we self-sabotage. I think a lot of us don't even know why we do this. Sabotage is like the biggest bully, but the number one thing that I've gotten often from clients is to the underrooted reason as to why we self-sabotage is number one, we have this fear of failure. Many people fear failure so intensely that they self-sabotage themselves so that it won't be a possible larger failure. I like to say it's like kind of like you like the evil that you know, right? So it's better to have the thing that you know than feel like you're going to have just like a huge mistake. So we often don't take risks. And a big part of that is because we're fearful of the larger failure. This like, and honestly, it's kind of like this unrealistic fear of failure. It isn't even rooted in truthfulness. It isn't even rooted in reality, but we tend to focus so much on the things that we fear the most. The second reason why we self-sabotage is the fear of success. Yep, success can be intimidating. I know for one, I was always so like I would never take risks because of this. Like, what if I get to this big success? One fear is like, what if the success that I get isn't something that I ended up liking? Or what if I go and am successful with this and then I don't even know how to make it sustainable? And also, what if I lead to this success and then the expectations are increased? We fear if we are successful, there's going to be more expectations and pressures, and this leads us to us subconsciously disrupting our own progress. The next reason is low self-esteem. Believing you're not worthy of success can lead to behaviors that align with this negative self-view. If we don't feel worthy of the change that we want, then it's going to be hard for us to continuously keep ourselves accountable for the change, for some positive changes, whether that be health-based habits or whether that be a specific outcome you want to reach. If we don't believe that we can do it, if we don't believe in ourselves, we don't think that we're worthy of being able to be successful in this area, then it's not going to happen. The way we talk to ourselves in our mind is so important, and it drives our behaviors. Our thoughts drive our behaviors. The next reason is control. Self-sabotage can be a way to exert control in situations where people feel they have little control. By self-sabotaging themselves, they are at least in control of the failure. I've often seen this. I'd rather know the beast that I face than the uncertainty of the unknown. And so we try to control a lot of things in our life when sometimes in order to reach a goal, we have to relinquish control. We have to not control situations. So an example would be like when we're trying to set a boundary and we think like, oh, that person isn't respecting my boundary. Well, that's because it's your boundary and they're going to be able to do whatever they want. You only have control over your actions and your reactions. And so you have the control to say your boundary, repeat your boundary, set a consequence. But at the end of the day, the person's going to do whatever they want to do. And so sometimes we'll like, well, let me just not set the boundary, because then I control the way they approach me, right? I like don't rock the boat. I'm a people pleaser. And so we like to keep that sense of control. And then lastly, it's familiarity and comfort is another reason why we self-sabotage. People often gravitate towards what's familiar. If someone is used to negative outcomes, example, a relationship, like if you're used to toxic relationships, self-sabotage can be a way to maintain this familiar state, even if it's not good for us. But again, it is the beast we know, right? And so if we know it, it feels comfortable. I often hear sometimes too, it's like whenever we have reached a state of like stability, it's only natural for us to want to revert back to chaos if our life has been chaotic. That's something that I learned growing up, like feeling this always sense of dread and anxiety, and just like feeling like a lot of people were expecting a lot from me. And so whenever I was finally in relationships that were stable and healthy and calm, I was just like, what the fuck? The other shoe's gonna drop. Like something is gonna happen. Like something bad will happen. But no, nothing bad was going to happen. It was just like my body was so used to it being in survival mode that it couldn't know any different. So a big part of it is like we're gonna have to be uncomfortable with even things like being stable and calm and peaceful, because that might be something that we're not used to, because we're so used to chaotic energy and self-sabotaging and not keeping ourselves accountable. So here are ways that you probably self-sabotage. These are the things that I've seen my clients do where they self-sabotage. Number one, procrastination. Delaying tasks and responsibilities can jeopardize your personal and your professional goals. So think about the things that you keep delaying. Think about the things that you keep procrastinating. That's like your one way that you could say fuck you to life, when you just delay your own tasks and your own responsibilities, when instead you can take the action of moving forward even if it's hard. And I think it's like if we're always waiting for things to be perfect, for things to be right in order for us to take action, we're going to constantly procrastinate, because there's never going to be that perfect moment. The second thing, ways that we self-sabotage, is negative self-talk. We engage in self-critical, pessimistic thoughts, and that usually always decreases our motivation, and it leads to a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure. And so think about the ways that you talk about yourself, or the things that you're going to do, like, oh, I can never grow my YouTube channel to this much, or I can never lose the weight, or I can never do this, or I can never be someone who has a clean home. Like, think about the things that you say to yourself, that these are the ways you self-sabotage, because you're priming for things to go bad. The third one is overindulgence. I do think just our culture is very much about overindulgence, whether that be self-care, whether that be we can always have an excess of anything, right? And so sometimes when we have this excess of consumption, whether that's overeating, overspending, it can be a way of avoiding responsibilities or feelings. Mainly it is a way of avoiding difficult feelings. I know when I was uncomfortable or sad or angry, I would go towards two things: overeating, treating myself, or overspending, over-consuming content. Like, name whatever it is that you can overconsume, and I was doing it, and it would stop me from truly just doing my best. And honestly, just overindulgence and overconsumption was really just making me just not think about my goal and self-sabotage. And I think it's totally normal that we fall off our goals, fall off our habits. But then when we do that to excess, we're like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to work out today, I'm not going to work out tomorrow. And then that continues and becomes a spiral of just overdoing it when it comes to resting. We can always do that too. We can overdo a lot of things. And the whole point is just like we're delaying responsibilities, we're delaying feeling uncomfortable. And because we do that, we then delay ourselves actually reaching our goals. The final thing as to what ways we self-sabotage is perfectionism. We set unrealistic high standards, and they set us up for failure. And these are goals that are just unobtainable. Example would be if you all of a sudden decided that you want to run a 5K, but you've never run, you don't do this on a daily basis, you don't walk, you don't exercise, you don't do any of these things, and then you're like, well, I couldn't get to the the 5K run because I just didn't prepare myself. It's like you set yourself up for that. So really be honest with yourself, and it's going to be hard. I think sometimes we're just so hard on ourselves, and being honest with ourselves about like where we're at in our journey. The more that you're honest yourself, if you are on ground zero, you are on ground zero. You are a beginner, you are a beginner, and there is nothing wrong with you being a beginner. So I highly recommend that you start small and stop thinking about things as this all or nothing mentality where you have to be perfect at everything. I'm going to share some strategies to help you stop self-sabotage, because this is the number one thing that's going to help you with not holding yourself back, keeping yourself accountable, and honestly really do put your boundaries first. So the number one thing is awareness and reflection. Like I told you, if we don't know where we're at, where we're starting, we don't know what we need to fix or what we need to adjust. And so the first step is to recognize your self-sabotaging behavior, reflect on your past actions, and identify patterns where you've undermined yourself. So for me, I'll give you an example. For me, it was a busy calendar. I would always say yes to things without looking at my calendar. That small little thing that I would do would totally self-sabotage me for saying no to, saying yes to things that I genuinely want to be, and then saying no to things that drained my battery, because I wouldn't just take a minute and say, hey, let me get back to you on that. Or I need to first check my calendar before I commit to this. Or even asking people, like, what does this commitment take from me? What is it going to take, right? It's going to take 2 hours. Is it going to take, what is it going to take? I used to always just like say yes because I just didn't want people to feel bad, right? And then I realized, well, then because I'm not making them feel bad, then I am going to feel bad myself. And then eventually I'm just going to cancel, and then the cycle continues where I'm self-sabotaging. I'm not showing up for the important relationships, for things I actually want, and I'm not saying yes to things that matter and no to things that don't. And so even that little simple thing of just like making sure that I'm looking at my calendar before I say yes was such a game changer for me. So I want you to think of that, like little things that you do that maybe set you up to fail. And this is going to take some time to just like gain some awareness about this. But I want you to set the things that you tend to take action on, and on the things that you tend to delay. I want you to get a list, get a notebook, and on that list, you can do the things that you typically take action on and then the things that you typically delay. This is just going to be an idea of like where you're at, what are some things that, one, you are able to keep yourself accountable for, and two, the other things that just you tend to delay, whether that because maybe there's an uncomfortable feeling associated with it. Maybe it's like we've identified like we can't do these things, right? The negative self-talk, the talk that primes us to not want to do these things. I want you to think of that, because these are the things that we either need to accept that they're not going to be perfect, or that we need to modify in order for us to actually get them done. And then just even being mindful of this, like anytime we have inaction or actions, they both have consequences, like regardless. By you not taking action, there's going to be a consequence. By you taking an action, there's going to be a consequence. Either way, you have consequences. You cannot play out every scenario on how things are going to turn out. So keep that in mind. You're not a mind reader. You're not going to be able to also tell the future of like what action's going to stick and what isn't, and what's going to actually pay off. You're going to use data from your life and see what actually works. The second strategy to stop self-sabotage is to understand your triggers. So identify what triggers your self-sabotaging behavior. Is it fear? Is it stress? Or feelings of inadequacy? Understand that these can help you in developing coping strategies that actually work for you. So some of my triggers were feeling like I had no time. Some of my triggers were also a busy calendar. Again, that was a trigger for me. Some of my triggers were also just like not planning, or planning too much in one day, doing too many things, putting too many things on my to-do list. And those are some ways that I self-sabotage. Those were some of my triggers. So I know when I'm spending too much scrolling on social media, I then see a decline in how much action I take in terms of like maybe recording a video or actually just working towards my goals. So I know that gives a negative effect in my life. So again, what triggers you? think about the things that you do, and then as a result of those things, are you not taking action, or do you take action, right? Because some of these things could be positive things. These are the things that propel you to take action, right? Like I know when I am do a morning routine first thing in the morning, go do my workout, do my gratitude journal, I know that pushes me to continue to make my day the best day ever. When I don't do any of these things or none of them at all, then I know that I'm gonna feel some type of way, feel like I didn't accomplish something, and probably push myself too much because I didn't accomplish these things first thing in the morning, you know? So that's just me. Like, morning routines don't have to be your thing, but you have to think about the things that are actually going to help you stay motivated or stay disciplined, because sometimes there isn't motivation. Sometimes there's discipline. Sometimes so I've been doing 30-minute walks in the morning, and sometimes I don't want to do it. And I just say, you know what? I'm just going to do this for 5 minutes. If after 5 minutes I still want to continue, then I'll continue. But if I don't, then I'm okay. I've at least done it 5 minutes. Usually what happens is that I've gained momentum and I end up enjoying it. And so also pairing it with something that you love to do. So think about the things that you love to do. Also, if there is a motivator or why you're doing it, the person who suggested this video said they want to get healthy for their kids, but I really think that they need to get healthy for themselves, right? Because at the end of the day, your kids are not going to motivate you all the time to get to that healthy state, you know? Some days your kids are not going to be the greatest motivators. Sometimes your kids are going to be the things that don't motivate you to get these things done because things are stressful. I recognize that like this has to come from an internal source of wanting these things to happen, and also just taking a step back and imagining yourself as if you're already there at the finish line with whatever it is that you envisioned for your life. The third strategy is to set realistic goals. I told you a way that we self-sabotage is perfectionism, and usually that's with our goals. We have habits like, I need to read 10 pages a day. Why 10 pages? Like, what is the reason for 10 pages? I'd rather you say, I want to read every day. I just want to set intentional time to read, and then you'll be able to stick with it, and you'll see, are 10 pages the right number for you? Or maybe it's just like, I want to read for 30 minutes, or I want to set a time to read and just enjoy it. Like, why do we bully ourselves to have to do certain things for a certain amount of time? Who said that we have to do things for a certain amount of time? No one. So set realistic goals based on your lifestyle, based on your expectations, based on what feels manageable for you. I do have a full video on how to set realistic goals for yourself, so make sure that you check that video out. I think that could be really helpful. Also, don't have so many goals, especially if you're someone who has never stayed on track, never kept accountable for their goals or habits. Limit yourself to 1 to 3 goals a year. Yep, that's right, just a year. I know sometimes getting on YouTube, you see everyone's goals videos, my goal video included, and it feels like, oh my gosh, I can do this. You get so inspired, but you don't know that person's life or what capacity they have for goals. You also don't know I would also say, if you're a subscriber to someone, like really, really take a look at like if they do vlogs and stuff and updates, and if they're constantly like not even reaching their goals, like canceling, then you know that they're also just people who do a lot of goals but never actually accomplish anything, or they never actually like stick to it. Like, I mean, I think there's just so many people that do so many goals videos, and then I find looking at their videos and then I'm like, that's not even a goal. And goals can change, don't get me wrong. Be flexible, but at the same time, like, also hold yourself accountable. Be flexible, but also hold yourself accountable. But yeah, definitely look at the people that you are. Like, if you are consuming videos on YouTube, like if they're not people who actually hold themselves accountable, then just know, like, things are not, that's just say that just like you don't see everything that happens behind the scenes when it comes to goal setting. And so I'd rather you be your own compass of like, okay, this is going to motivate me. This is what I want. Look for inspiration. Yeah. I love whenever I'm like in a slump and I really don't want to do my morning routine, I will put a video of someone else doing their morning routine, and that motivates me to do my own version of a morning routine. And so I get that, but sometimes too, the reverse effect can happen where if you're constantly looking at videos, like goal setting videos, but never actually setting your own goals or doing anything towards your goals, that's super counterproductive, and that is a way you are self-sabotaging. So set realistic goals for yourself and know that you have a different capacity than everyone else, and that's totally okay. There are going to be seasons where you're going to have more capacity to do a lot more goals, and there's seasons that you won't. The next thing is develop positive self-talk. This is the only way that we can counteract negative self-talk. I want you to challenge and replace those negative thoughts into more encouraging statements. Now, we don't have to be toxic positive over here. Like, we don't have to be like, oh my gosh, girl, you're amazing, you're great. If you don't believe that, don't say that. But I do believe that affirmations and mindfulness can help shift your mindset. And the way that I would encourage you to do this is just to be mindful of priming language. So priming language is things like, this is so hard, I can't do this. Instead, I want you to say, reframe that to, instead of this is hard, you can say, this is how I'm going to make this easier on myself. Instead of saying, I can't do this, you then say, I can do this instead of that, right? So you reframe your brain into being more encouraging and less negative, because again, if we say we can't, it's hard, I don't want to, like those kinds of things, it primes your brain to go to the negative. Another thing, and this is also something like to keep yourself accountable, sometimes you do need other people to keep you accountable, and that is to seek support, whether that's friends, family, or even having your own therapist that can help you keep you accountable, because sometimes it's so hard. We are not meant to do this life alone. We are not meant to just do everything alone. And so it's okay to seek support in order to help us with accountability. And so seek support based on your goals. I joined a group that is helping me stay accountable about planning. So if you're working towards starting like a YouTube channel or writing a book or changing careers, we need to find groups that help you support doing that thing, because you're not meant to do these things alone. And I think even then, just thinking that this is all you having to do this all on your own is also a way that we can self-sabotage. That can trigger self-sabotage, because I know for a fact that I don't know every single thing there is about planning and planning effectively. And I also know that I don't know every single thing about healthy habits and working out and what's great and what can work. And so I love getting information from other people and then just taking the pieces that make sense and trying it out for myself, like doing a lot of trial and error. Another strategy is to learn from failures, and that is actually embracing and exposing yourself to failures. View failures as opportunities, even changing the word failures, like just leave them as like lessons learned. Insert whatever phrase works for you, but reframing that as well, rather than, I don't want you to see failures rather as a reflection of your worth, because they are not. They're a reflection. Sometimes if we feel at something, even if we tried our best, it's not even our own control. Another strategy is developing healthy coping mechanisms, so healthy ways to deal with stress and anxiety, because usually those are feelings that trigger self-sabotage. So this is things like exercising, creating hobbies for yourself, relaxation techniques. I have a video on 10 habits to help support your mental health. You can check that out to see if there are ways, some coping skills there that might be helpful for you. And then celebrate successes. Acknowledge and celebrate your achievements, no matter how small. This can help build a positive association with success. You can do a win wall. I've seen people do post-it notes where they talk about the things that they've accomplished. I acknowledge my wins during my monthly reflection videos. I sit down and write what my wins were for the month, and I just acknowledge them because they're so important. I used to be someone who just like, oh, that's just something that I do. Like, yeah, like I gained this much. And my husband put it in perspective, because I was feeling really low about the amount of people that were like, they were growing their channel and I wasn't growing my channel. And then over the last month, 40,000, I had an additional 40,000 views. And he put it into perspective of like, imagine that there was a stadium with 40,000 people like looking at you. Like, that is amazing. Like, that is incredible. And so it really put into perspective for me, like, wow, like, this is a great accomplishment. Like, this is amazing. I need to stop looking at what other people are doing and focus on my journey. So that is all of these strategies. But now let me give you guys some subscriber stories. Some people have submitted stories just to get a little bit of feedback. So this person put, I struggle with overloading my plate due to having multiple passions. I keep trying to do less and simplify, but somehow always let the excitement of a new project goal carry me beyond my capacity, which leads to burnout and anxiety. I think for this, like creating rules for yourself are really important. So you could do this based on a quarter, based on a month, that you can only do two things, like a habit, like a hobby, and then like a habit-based goal and maybe like an outcome-based goal. So you want to make sure that also your day is full of variety and that your goals are flexible. So you don't want to set like specific goals. My husband does a really good job at this because he doesn't necessarily write goals. He just like has an intentionality and then just works towards it. And then when he doesn't feel excited about it anymore, he just stops. And that is okay. I don't operate in that way, but some people can really work with just setting intentions, less on setting goals, and just knowing that it's okay to be multi-passionate in projects now. It really just depends too, though. Like if this is like you start a new project, but you're feeling some sort of type of way about not finishing it, I think a big part of it is like forgiving yourself for knowing that this might not be something for you. Like truly, is it just like you're just like done with it? Or is it maybe like, hey, I'm gonna keep it on the side, and then when I find inspiration and feel like I can get back to working on this, I will. It just depends like what the excitement of a new project means for you, because if there's like money tied towards it, right, like, oh, I wanted to start a business, but then all of a sudden I just like stop and I want to start this business, and it keeps you like never staying accountable. At the end of the day, it's like I'm not making the money that I want. Like you have to think about like what the reason is where you maybe feel bad of not sticking to a goal, not sticking to a project. And also just again, as far as like carrying yourself, like putting too much overload on your plate, really, I have a note on my notes app where I would write what's on my plate. And this is everything. These are like your non-negotiables, negotiables, everything that you have on your plate, and also like ideas that you've been wanting to do, things like that. Like those are on your plate. Even if you haven't taken action on them, they're on your plate because they're on your mind. And so I would encourage you to just do like a brain dump of what is on your plate. Like everything that's like non-negotiable, like going to work, taking a shower, all those things, like those count, because then that could give you perspective of like, oh, okay, like this is a lot. I may need to reduce that list and give myself a rule of the only way I can add something is to take something out. And that's the best thing to do. Subscriber number 2 said, as a people pleaser, I struggle with being upfront with people when they say or do something that upsets me. I try and tell myself that I'll stand up for myself more, but the times that I try, I end up softening my words or tone so I don't make them upset. I really struggle with making myself and peace the priority. This is hard because setting boundaries isn't easy, and I think a big part is like you need to start first focusing on maybe on setting boundaries with people who are it's easy, and like just being comfortable with people being upset with you, and you can start like little low exposure exercises. Like I've told clients to go to Target and find a worker and ask them for help to look for something that you already know where it is. This is just something for you. It is okay to have people upset because we don't know that worker at the store could be in a bad mood. It doesn't matter, but outside of that, you're going to move on after a week or two. But this is kind of a similar way of like how things would happen with a person that you know really closely that may get upset. This is just helping you grow the habit, just slowly exposing yourself to things that make you feel uncomfortable when other people are upset. That can be a big game changer for you, just to help you feel more comfortable with that feeling. And even just writing down a couple of statements for yourself that you are going to make sure that you try your best to say these things, even like with setting a boundary. Maybe right now we're working towards stating our boundaries over email, over text, something that can help you not sway away from your words. So again, small steps can really be helpful so you won't self-sabotage and revert back to just being more soft-spoken and not getting them upset. You do not control other people's emotions. Straight up, you don't. And so even they'll be upset with you no matter what. People will be upset with you no matter what because it benefits them that you don't set your boundary, you know? And so when you think about that, like, wouldn't someone that loves you and appreciates you, wouldn't they want you to be happy, and wouldn't they want you to be able to have a relationship together that is based on mutual respect and trust. And so with that being said, like, you don't have to hold yourself with this high expectation, but that person, they can be upset with you, but you can't be upset with them. Like, that just doesn't work that way. Relationships are reciprocal, right? And so I would also say, like, just again, practicing exposure and just really putting into perspective, like, these are the things that I definitely want to hold myself accountable for. What are the words and phrases? Even like, I would even like dissect the phrases that you think are like bad, or like that you think are going to get them upset, and try to say those phrases to other people that maybe don't hold such a high anxiety, or maybe they're just like lesser of an important relationship than this people, right? Because usually we have the toughest time to set boundaries with people that we have a relationship, like family, close friends, as opposed to other people that we don't really mind maybe setting a boundary with, like a coworker or something. So I hope that was helpful and insightful in like your journey on not self-sabotaging and holding yourself accountable. Overcoming self-sabotage takes patience and persistence. It honestly involves changing long-standing habits and mindsets, which isn't an overnight process. So here we want to focus on consistent efforts and focusing on the right strategies for you. It's possible to move past self-sabotage and towards a more fulfilling and successful life, one that you feel proud of because you are taking ownership of it and taking action towards the life that you want. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. I can't wait to see you in my next video.